Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us today, with a webinar from Juniper Networks on Solutions That Matter with SDN and NFV. Today we'll be joined by special guest James Morgan, Managing Director from Infradata, an important NFV solutions partner for us at Juniper. Also with us is Danielle Williams, Director of Product Marketing, Mohsen Hadal, Program Manager with Professional Services, and myself, Wayne Chung, Director of Product Marketing, and I'll be your host today. Juniper is very excited to bring you a webinar series on transformation management as it relates to NFV. Preceding this webinar is one with Paul Obsinick, who talks about SP transformation as a whole. This leads then into our webinar series, starting with Solutions That Matter, which we'll talk about today. Then we'll have 3 dives on transformation topics around the business, around technology, and lastly around organization. Then we'll close on this webinar series with measuring the impact of using NFV in your business. Today's agenda on Solutions That Matter begins with an introduction to discuss what's all this hype about with NFV. Then talk about Cloud CPE as a way to develop and offer new services to the enterprise market rapidly. Then the Telco Cloud, about using an infrastructure based on virtualization to offer capabilities. Based on interest in these 2 solution categories, we'll talk about how to get a jump start in these areas. Then we'll close with key takeaways. Let's take a look at this transformation that service providers are embarking. It really begins with the cloud experience, with a focus on improving customer satisfaction and new ways to monetize value through accelerated service delivery. Let's draw the analogy with the media industry and that of the networking industry. In the early days of media in the cloud, very predefined structures. Maybe you have very set music libraries that you would play from, not a lot to wow the customer with. The analogy here would be that of the network industry. All best effort internet-based service, giving you simple bandwidth connectivity to the service provider or to over-the-top services. Not a lot of policies, not a lot of wow factor. Then we jump into a more subscriber-aware model, let's say with an iTunes. You can set up custom playlists here, set up preferences of music that you might like, and have a little bit more anticipated media delivered to you. The analogy here would be that of multi-service bundles from service providers offering voice, video, data, quality of service pipes, and accessing, again, service provider data centers or to over-the-top services. Improved experience, but still very statically provisioned, but with some anticipated capabilities to the consumer. Then we get into the Pandora world. Very auto-customized, suggestive to the music that you might like. Now that analogy would translate to the programmable custom services that a service provider would offer with application-based service chains and much more wow factor to the satisfaction that a customer might get from those services. So if you look at the brand value as analogous to the customer satisfaction, we will see that improve as we move up the value chain. Now let's look at some of the external factors impacting and influencing the change service providers are going through, both from a customer perspective as well as from a competition perspective. This is really driving the need for warp speed innovation. And from a customer perspective, their expectations are all evolving. They're looking for user-defined customized models and a consumption model that allows them to pay as they grow. They don't want to have that very large upfront cost for unpredictable demand going forward. They are also looking for delivery in an on-demand model. They don't want to predict going out into the future that I'm going to need services X, Y, and Z. When they want it, when they need it, they want those delivered anytime, anywhere, in a consistent manner globally. And that really leads to that instantaneous delivery the fact that business is going to suffer if those services aren't going to get delivered immediately, and therefore, for their business continuity, they really need now instant delivery of services. Stepping over to the competition side, traditional telcos are obviously seeing innovative service providers amongst themselves taking foothold within this NFV journey. Combine that with new entrants in terms of cloud service delivery models like an Amazon or a Google, they're able to now deliver new services and new capabilities in a matter of minutes to days. Then looking at the over-the-top players who are adding value to their end customer, riding over the service provider's connections, but being able to monetize based on applications that customers need. With all of these changes impacting the landscape, service providers are needing to look for new tools. So with all these factors impacting the service provider's business, there is no choice but to transform today with this journey to the cloud. In categorizing this transformation, there really are three major buckets that Juniper sees. The first is around technology. The technology from going from a physical-only infrastructure to that of a physical plus virtual, to be able to blend the best of virtualization capabilities with their existing assets. This is how Juniper is looking at the technology transformation side of this journey. Second is around the business impacts. The business models that we saw from the first slide around comparing the music industry to the network industry showed really the world of simple connectivity models moving to a rich set of services that are user-defined, driving new ways for service providers to monetize this business. Now, in that transformation, this requires close business assessments, strategic planning, and execution with targeted metrics. And lastly, we'll focus on organizational transformation, which is the conversion from an operation models of weeks to months to deliver services to the market to that of minutes and days with a DevOps-based model. This requires a whole new operation model, but more importantly, it requires the organization to transform from a culture, skills, and processes perspective. So our follow-on webinars will focus on these three topic areas in more detail. Juniper believes that this journey will be very transformative, but it takes a new way of thinking. So here's our thoughts. Think big and start small. Have a strategic plan in place of where you want to take your business, but start small by picking a project that you think you could be successful with and start learning from that. Then, move into an assessment phase. Evaluate your business, your technology, and your organization to identify the strengths and also the weaknesses for how you would be able to conduct a project as so. Then, begin a proof of concept. Go into the lab and start learning about these capabilities and what this could mean to your business. Followed by an execution plan conducted of describing your offer, and understanding your processes to roll this out to market, and the value proposition that this brings to your end customer. Then, start to build this using an agile development methodology and an operational mode with a DevOps model that you can begin to roll out these services rapidly to market and test them. Then, through these informed trials, you can conduct a more strategic go-to-market plan and understand where your successes will be with these new projects. Then, at this point, because you haven't invested an enormous time in the development cycle, you can either fail fast if the project doesn't take off, or scale fast if the success of the project has taken hold. Then, with this investment, you've developed a platform that will continue to allow you to rapidly innovate with new services based on automation, self-provision models, and a cloud-based delivery model. These are going to be the foundations for your evolution. We've now given you a glimpse of what's driving this transformation using NFV. Next, we'll dive into a real-world example with Cloud CPE And now to our expert, Daniel.
Thank you, Wayne. So let's take a quick look at how the present mode of operations of how CPEs are deployed today and how they're really limiting the business outcomes and how the end customers are really stuck in a very rigid and manual operation paradigm, which is limiting their ability to really create customized services for the end customer. So let's just take a kind of unravel this equation for a little bit. If we look at how an end customer actually requires services, they have to pick up the phone and engage their account manager to inquire upon what new services are available to them, how they get access to them. If they want to order them, they then have to put that order in with that specific account rep. And then if you look at the service provider side of the equation, they have to go through a lot of manual operation of qualifying, assessing, and implementing that specific service. And we have to do that over and over and over again for many different flavors. So if I'm a customer looking for some IPS with maybe some DPI and some web filtering, that could be a very customized service that needs to be offered and built for me. So then once I've made that decision, it's going to take many, many months to get that service delivered to me. And the service provider has only one preset operations of actually delivering that to me. So it's going to be really painful of a test and turn up and implementation from their perspective. And they better get it right, because there's not going to be a lot of leeway for recouping the cost of assessing for that service for that particular market. There is no option for failure. This is essentially how we look at the traditional CPE market. So there's a couple of different virtualized options to really break this paradigm of the traditional CPE market. And with Juniper's Cloud CPE solution, we actually have a couple of different options. The first one being a centralized deployment model, which really takes those physical functions that resided on the physical CPEs and virtualizes them and puts them into the telco cloud. That telco cloud can either exist in an actual data center, or it can actually exist in a next generation central office or POP, where we've actually collapsed and provided part of that POP as kind of a mini data center. And with this, there's a lot of operational benefits in doing so. You can actually reduce the time to market of assessing a new service and getting that out to market to your customers by up to 50%. You get a lot of capital efficiencies by leveraging common equipment and virtualized equipment. So now that you can actually scale with your customers as they start to require new services, and you really start to get a very ease of use and the ability to really assess a new service, and be able to put that into the marketplace, determine if that is successful or not. If it is a failure, you can then recoup all of the capital investments you've made on your cloud, telco cloud, your data center, and your POP, because now you can re-leverage all that equipment. So there's a lot of efficiencies and capital of scale, and when we look at how we start to now add automation and orchestration on top of this, the TCO of this overall platform really goes down and becomes now an innovation engine for ideating new services. And you actually change places with the end customer. The end customer now, through engaging a portal, can now make the determination of what is the right services for me at the right particular time, style empowering them and giving them a lot better trust between the end customer and the end provider. So the centralized model really brings and centralizes that what used to reside on the customer prem in a physical CPE, now virtualize that into the actual telco cloud. Juniper's Cloud CPE solution is its flexibility. Its flexibility to not only address a centralized model, but what we're also calling a distributed model. The distributed model is a way of actually taking the concept of virtualization and distributing it all the way to the customer prem. And in doing so, it also reduces the service to rollouts, and because we can all do this through orchestration, this does require a platform to be on the customer prem that actually supports virtualization. And in this, as part of the Cloud CPE, we've introduced a new class of product called NFX, which is essentially the blending of a server and a CPE and having that ability to stand up and automate different virtualized services on that platform in a very open, standards-based way. So I can now, in cases where a customer has a specific need, and a lot of those needs could be very oriented to their industries where I have different compliances that I need to adhere to, security then could be a very easy way to start that on that customer's prem and then have that be consistent across all of the different branches. So it's very, very service flexible and very, very service extensible. All of the same niceties that a centralized deployment model gives you is all still available with a distributed model. I can actually start that security service on the customer's prem, and then the nicety thing here is it's really a blend of, hey, I can then also tie back into centralized services. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. I meet customers' specific preferences. They may have a very strict way of doing things, but then also I can take the advantage of centralizing some of those functionality and really get to the benefits of both optimizing my operations by automating all the services, and then also too by delivering the customized service that's needed to meet those customers' demands. So in this is something that AT&T has been, for their perspective, really pushing for in terms of the way that they want to push out new services, is really have a way of giving their customers their familiarity to the current system, but give them a sense that, hey, now that we're going to move to a NFV SDN world, your world doesn't change, customers. The way that your network architect looks is still going to be secure, but now you get the freedom of agility. You get the freedom of determining what services that you want and when you want them by going through and having the ability to go through a portal and instantiate that across their entire infrastructure. So the nice thing about the Cloud CPE model is really gives you that flexibility to really look at both a centralized deployment model and a distributed deployment model. So all of this is talking about, we've given not just a way of addressing the deployment models, but it's really a platform for innovation. It's a platform to transform the way that the end customer consumes product. And this all starts from the notion that I need to have something that's very end-to-end management that easily fits into my existing EMS or NMS, OSS and BSS infrastructure, so that I really have an easy way to accrue and account for the billing of this system. So it needs to be fully end-to-end. And that's one of the value adds that we've had with Cloud CPE, is that we've really addressed not just a model that some customers or some other vendors have centralized, but we have centralized and distributed, and you have the freedom to go between both. Within this, there is the notion that the way that the service provider engages the customer, the roles actually change. The customer is now in control of their service, and they do that through a self-care portal. Some people call that a marketplace. And so in that marketplace, they have, services that have been tested and validated, and then they can then choose and opt in on those services. And this gives that customer sat that the SPs are looking for to improve, now to have a platform to actually market to those end customers and show them the value of some of these new services. Hey, if you are doing these specific things or have these specific concerns, you can look at now these specific services that we have to really placate and help you in your business. So it brings a lot of synergies between where the SPs are at and where the customers are at, and bring those two worlds together. In this, it's also flexible, not just the fact that I can do all this through a portal, but I can also really have the flexibility of an open architecture to stand up any type of service, essentially, and any type of the service model. If that be network services, if that be security services, I can start to address different parts of my network. This is extensible to mobility. If I wanted to be a classical over-the-top and do infrastructure as a service or software as a service, anything as a service, the extensibility of having not just a vertically end-to-end solution, but horizontal end-to-end solution to allow me to address any type of application. And so that really takes the intelligence of the SP Cloud to a whole new level by having a platform that is essentially the bedrock for innovation and automating all the services. So why does all this matter? I kind of hinted at the fact that in the previous way of delivering services on traditional CPEs, it takes months, maybe years, and we really want to squeeze that down into minutes. I want to go from a truck roll to a mouse roll. I want to allow the customer to have the ability to log in and choose what services is right for them. So all this matters because, one, Cloud CPE is a very extensible and flexible end-to-end service that's kind of to me the bedrock for the service innovation. Everything is open and interoperable. We have done this because a lot of different customers want to be able to then choose the individual components and integrate that into maybe their specific development plans. And so having things like open contrail, customers can then actually opt into the open community, and if they feel like they want to develop a specific feature functionality within the solution set, they can then do that for themselves. So they're not locked into a specific vendor in the way that they're going to deliver services to market. So it gives a lot of innovation from that perspective. Everything has been crafted from a carrier grade perspective and scale. So not only does it scale up, but it also scales out, and it can scale back in as needed, all being very, very secure. This is all given the fact that Contrail has really been a platform that has, one, been recognized as the most deployable platform in the industry, and it allows the software stack of Contrail to really address not only the automation and SDN of services within a data center, also within a POP. You have an umbrella of orchestration across all of that then automates all of the service instantiation in those or even on the prem. And so we see many different customers like OBS and AT&T really gravitating to this notion that this is going to be the way, this is going to be the way of the future, this is going to allow me to bring not only relevance back to my own customers, but also relevance back to how I change my organization and look at delivering services quite differently. All of this needs to be really automated service delivery, and it needs to be done at scale.
Danielle, if I may ask you a question here. That was really insightful. Actually, I'd like to ask James a question. He deals with customers day in, day out from a go-to-market perspective. How are you seeing customers embrace this type of approach with virtual CPE?
Well, I think in the first instance, they're certainly still quite hesitant is the reality, and I think it's because there is a shift that's taking place. But I think what we certainly see is organizations needing to provide that I guess the consumerization of IT to their customer base. So we see a huge amount of interest today, and then what I'm going to come on in a little while is how we help try and accelerate the adoption of and really making those meaningful steps towards delivery of some of those services and some of the benefits that we've just touched on, because they're certainly there for all to see.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Daniel, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. So to give a little bit of context here, the results kind of speak for themselves. And these results and numbers really come from not what we have estimated that can be provided for our customers, but really the customers themselves doing an internal reflection upon, an evaluation, what is the end results for them. And so one of our customers, Colt, who's been early on and really pushing for the virtualization of the CPE services and functionality, they've seen a 41% reduction in the total cost of ownership for them. So this is significant bottom line, back to the bottom line validation of why they want to move to this very centralized model and moving the virtualization off of the customer prem and centralizing it. It has significant amount of TCO value for them. And also AT&T has been in many forums over the last several months definitely talking about, with this, we're going to actually change the way our provisioning cycles look for our customers. And that's going to change dramatically, 95% reduction in provisioning. And that number, if you look at how I actually go from months to years, and I squeeze that down by 95%, that is a huge amount of efficiencies gained out of this whole process that is also going to help placate back to AT&T's bottom line, but also help grow top line.
Thank you, James and Danielle, for your insights. Next, we'll delve into a real-world example with Telco Cloud and what this solution means to the service provider's business. So what does Telco Cloud really mean to the service provider? It's really about that platform that drives and delivers new value up the stack to their end customers. Let's take a look at this historically, about the network and about the experiences and applications. In the early 1900s to the 2000s, it really was all about voice, having the best quality voice experience to that of delivering long-distance voice capabilities. That made customers happy. Then, the 2000s to 2010s was adding internet data. We all remember that time. It was great to be able to surf the internet and gain the information that you want. So let's move us to the present day period. Moving up the value chain meant creating platforms of platform as a service, cloud-based services, as well as services and content and applications to the end user. So as we say now, it's really about that content that makes customers happy. And they need to be delivered. So if the service provider cannot deliver these services to the end customer in a reliable and quality manner, then the content will really be meaningless. So moving into really the future, what does that mean? That means the Telco Cloud in a distributed mode. This allows them to bring those services and bring that content closer to the end user who's going to be consuming those, whether it be enterprise or a service provider, to be able to leverage that network and deliver them those services the most cost-effective way, the most reliable way, and all the other factors that really improve the quality of that experience is going to be the differentiator that a service provider can offer that no one else really can. Let's take a moment now and describe and define what a distributed telco cloud really is all about. It's really about the geographical placement of those servers, those applications, the content, and better integration with the network that delivers those services. Let's take a moment here and look at the national data center. Now this is where typically the big iron would reside, where you've got storage, compute, and centralized management and orchestration layers to facilitate the delivery of those services. So here the service provider may have a catalog of services they've defined. In this catalog of services, they would then be able to facilitate the implementation and delivery of these services in an on-demand model as the customer would order them. And using, let's say, an OpenStack-based model with Heat API templates, they can customize and rapidly deliver those application and services across the storage and compute in the data center. But what really would differentiate them is that there are some services that are naturally better closer, if they resided closer to the end customer. So for example, content delivery networks for media, video, and other types of latency-sensitive content, or applications from service providers which also have a high latency sensitivity to them. So if that was the case, then pushing out those type of applications closer to the regional central office or even the compact central office would be a much better home for those. Still using the same basis of a heap-based OpenStack template to push those services, but with a centralized management and orchestration coming in from the national data center. So this would allow the service provider uniquely to be able to deliver those capabilities into their regional COs and compact COs. Taking this step even further, with a software-driven CPE model, such as the NFX 250, service providers can use the same model that they had in the COs and push virtual network function capabilities onto these software-driven CPE devices, again using the foundations of OpenStack, and to be able to deliver those type of applications where customers demand that they live on-premise. Take, for example, encryption capabilities or WAN acceleration. Those would naturally live better on the customer prem. So now with this distributed model, functions that live best on the customer prem can be service chained with functions that may live better in the central office, and again service chained with certain applications and functions that might live better in the data center for cost effectiveness. This type of distributed telco cloud approach is uniquely favoring the service provider for differentiation of service delivery. So this slide will really demonstrate the value of a DevOps approach to that of the distributed cloud. Now, again, we talked about the applications. You know, service providers are struggling. I've got OTT vendors coming in. I've got SLAs to meet. I've got virtual network functions to figure out which ones. There's a lot of complexity. So they're already having to confront dealing with, public clouds and private clouds using methodologies such as agile workloads, workflow orientation with automation through APIs, elastic resource management for pooled resources or dynamically driven resources based on an on-demand model. With analytics, they can further extract the usage bases and better serve their customer through the analytics and analysis of those analytics to deliver ultimately a better service to the end customer. Based on also open-based standards so that they can integrate third-party capabilities in, but all this in a centralized manner. So why limit your distribution model to only a centralized cloud-based model? As we discussed in the previous slide, the advantages that they can gain from a distributed mode, taking these same DevOps-based principles that's allowing over-the-top vendors to differentiate themselves, but then adding the flavor of that distributed telco cloud model to deliver services really gives them a differentiated model that really only they can have. So let's walk through a couple examples of real-world telco cloud scenarios that allow them to use this as a platform for innovation. Up at the top left is that of a cloud brokerage service. So while the service provider may be offering SLA-based connectivity services to their tenants on the left, they've become a central conduit for connectivity to other clouds and retain that same SLA-driven connectivity service to those clouds. In this manner, that end connection to their customer they're driving greater value to. But it's an on-demand model. You never know when a particular tenant may need a connection, let's say to Salesforce, and another tenant to an SAP database. So having a ability to dynamically create connectivity services to other clouds using things like virtual MX to virtualize that connectivity in an on-demand mode allows them that service flexibility. Second would be more of an internal sort of infrastructure improvement for their network services. So while they in the blue cloud, they may have physical infrastructure that fits very well to traditional sizing characteristics. There may be a need for some dynamic allocation of resources, whether that be for some failure models or for some dynamic events that might occur that drives up demand for a week or 2 week basis. So having virtual PE and virtual route reflector functions in their network allow them to dynamically size to elastically grow for capacity and adjunct that to their physical network. Next is that of using service chaining in a way to dynamically aggregate, as we presented in the Telco Cloud slide, of service chaining on-premise to central office to data center applications where different services and different applications might reside across all three of those locations. So using a dynamic service chain model with Contrail allows them to construct those services based on the customized needs of an enterprise. Then lastly, it's the illustration of creating micro-security perimeters for their applications. So whether those applications might be in a data center, might be in a central office, or may be on-premise somewhere, using virtual SRX allows them to create a custom security perimeter for those application specifics. So instead of trying to jam all your security policies in one central large firewall, as an example, you could now create, with the virtualization of SRX, create very pinpointed security policies for those application servers that you're trying to protect at these various locations. And this allows you, again, to elastically grow and customize those policies based on the needs of that customer. So these are 4 very typical illustrations, and there are many more that we could draw up around how the Telco Cloud enables them a platform for this type of transformation. So we talked about several very innovative models around how the distributed Telco Cloud can really start to address problems for innovation that service providers are trying to, again, keep up with this market innovation. So the impact around this distributed Telco Cloud really can be summarized in 3 main categories. The first is top-line revenue generation. And that really is the key to the success of the service provider long-term. The ability to improve service agility, how they deliver these to market, helps them capture that revenue faster than before. Tapping into new markets and new service models that they previously were, not able to capture because of the rigidness of a high capex intensive approach to now a virtualized approach. They can really tap into those new markets, and then ultimately upsell the connectivity services that they are already selling today. So secondly, it's around that CapEx efficiency. So lowering that initial investments allows them to take more risk, as well as creating more optionality and flexibility to allocating that capital expenditure, and then therefore maximizing the network asset utilization of the CapEx expenditure that they have. And then lastly, this distributed telco cloud approach is that of the OpEx improvements. With automation and with those capabilities to deliver things faster, they ultimately will reduce their operational costs, their overall total cost of ownership, fulfill against these service cycles with greater velocity, and then ultimately help to reduce also their compliancy costs against this So this overall blended approach brought on by the distributed telco cloud brings great advantages to the service provider. James, again, I'd like to invite you, since you're dealing with customers all day with, embracing these technologies. How do you look at this?
Well, I think, you've clearly summed things up pretty clearly there. But I think really what we see is that the engagement and the sort of partnership that we now have to have with our service provider customers, because we need to touch the full breadth of the organization as we help drive their marketing, as we help drive their service creation, as we help drive the reduction and the financial side of the business. We really have to have an all-embracing and all-encompassing engagement model, and that again, of course, clearly has challenges for us, and it has challenges for our customers. Whenever you try and get any organization to do something new, then there's a learning curve and a learning experience and a certain sense of trepidation as well. But we certainly believe that by fast tracking in many areas, by delivering some of the solutions we can talk about in a moment or two, that we can really help them with those challenges in the marketplace, because there are new entrants to this organization, as you touched on it earlier in the webinar. The market's moving very quickly, and there are organizations that are not encumbered with the legacy environments that some of our customers have that really can deliver these services, the born-in-the-cloud type service providers. So there are plenty of reasons why these organizations need to change, but sometimes we need to give them that helping hand as an ecosystem to help them get to that place.
Thank you, James. We've now covered two impactful solutions using NFV technologies to transform. Next, we'll get the perspective from Wilson and James on how to get jump-started with these two solutions.
Thanks, Wayne. Okay, so you've understood the concept, you've heard about the technology. Now, how do you move forward? How do you make the transition from what you've got today to bring about this inclusion of this new technology, enabling you to deliver these new services in the future? Key to it is services, that is professional services. The notion of providing you the assistance to help you guide through the journey, show you a step-by-step plan that you might take, and work out where you might want assistance, and highlight to you the processes you might go through, the skill sets you might need at the different times, and just provide that overall guidance. So let's talk about it from two perspectives. First, the technology perspective. We'll start with, so what is it you're going to have to do with the technology? What have you got today, and what's the impact as to how best are you going to move forward to this virtualized environment? And that's where you might want to think about an assessment. Assessing where your requirements, where you're trying to get to, where your starting point, where are the gaps, what are the areas you need to address, and how might you best move forward. So at the end of the assessment, you have a roadmap, a plan, some guidance regarding next steps. And building on the experience that we've got for helping others with this, we've developed some assessments looking at cloud CPE for that specifically, looking at the OSS environment. How do you incorporate the impact or the billing and the requirements related to this virtualized environment into your existing operational systems? And finally, looking at the business case for moving to those new in virtualized environment. That's a business case assessment. That actually comes under the umbrella also, or is it aligned with the service development? Because as you think through the new services that you want to offer, then which are the right services for you? Not everybody wants the same set of services. Maybe you've determined that your market, there's some certain ones that are right, some others that aren't necessary. Maybe you want some services starting this year, some services starting in 2 years' time. We can help you think through that and provide a business model to justify making the move forward. And we can work with you and help you think about the data you would require, so you have some pro forma financials that you can present, so that when you go within your organization and say, we think we should go down this path, we've been working with you, and we can show you, here's what that business model looks like, here's the business case, here's the impact on your cash flow, etc. Okay, so all of these are areas of support where we can work with you to help you think through it. From a go-to-market perspective, so you've got that technology in place, you've done a test, you've got the business case, everybody's bought in. How do you actually take that service to market? So there we can help you think through, and we have some predefined outlines of collateral you might require, some ways to get this new service rolled out. Because it's all about, right from the start of this webinar, we've been talking about the speed that you can bring those new services to market. So we can help accelerate that speed, right, by having some predefined templates you can use, by having some guidance and resources that we can bring to bear to help you move forward quickly. Right? But you will want to have this proof of concept, a validation that, yes, this is all going to work for you. So we have the ability to do these proof of concepts in the open lab. We can help you look at, are there any specific virtualized functionality that you require. So let's test that. Let's make sure that that's up, ready, and doing what you want is going to fit into your systems. And finally, there's a field trial. Because having even the proof of concept, that's that initial instance, the notion that, yes, this all works together, it's going to provide what you're seeking, but then you're probably not going to do a massive rollout all at once. You want to do maybe 1-2 isolated field trials. So we have the services available to help you do that. Okay. So think about how you can use these services, how we can work with you as a partner, right, to help you move forward into this virtualized environment. And it's not just Juniper, it's Juniper and Juniper's partners themselves can help you. And so now I'd like to hand over to James from Infradata, because they've developed some specific services, specialized services, to help you think about moving to this virtualized environment, looking at the proofs of concept, right, and overall to allow you to accelerate your move down this path, right, and get a jump start as you take the next steps.
So, well, thank you for that. And I guess before we move into how we help our customers deploy some of this technology and capability, if I go back to how we really approach the whole SDN and NFV marketplace and capabilities like the virtual CPE, some time ago we decided that we wanted to really, solve a lot of those problems and challenges that our customers experience when it comes to bringing on board new technologies. And certainly when you look at the whole world of virtualization and the customer base and service provider market that we have, which is typically the tier 2 service providers, we felt that we had to really take a lead with this. And we designed a platform, which is a portal-based platform called Nucleus. And we had our technical guys and our marketing guys and sales guys all get together and spend an awful lot of time looking at the market and coming up with what we really felt was a best-of-breed approach to fast-tracking our customer base into this agile and flexible new world of NFV. And Nucleus really very, at a high level, is clearly a layer of infrastructure, which is kind of what's usually referred to as the underlay, but that's very heavily based on Juniper technology, which we again believe very firmly is the best of breed from a networking and switching perspective. And then adding an automation and orchestration layer in there. So Contrail is really very important to us, both at the infrastructure layer, but also from an orchestration perspective. And what you also see there is an OpenStack engagement. So we work very closely with OpenStack to be able to orchestrate and tell the compute and storage piece what needs to be done. And then very heavily, our customers and the market research told us that it needed to be open, but also multi-vendor. So what you see here is the ability to deliver a whole range of virtualized functions from a networking perspective and from an application perspective as well into that particular marketplace. And the whole thing is really wrapped around a very simple and straightforward and easy to use portal that really does deliver and execute on that promise of, no longer delivering truck rolls, but certainly using mouse rolls. So just with few simple clicks that you could start delivering these services in an automated and virtualized environment. And that's what we've delivered with the Nucleus platform. So once we'd delivered on our vision of having a portal-based delivery tool, we decided to work on a way, again, of fast-tracking for our customers. And we designed this concept working very closely with Juniper and a few other key vendors in our stack to deliver a POC in a box and a POC in a box architecture. And what we found is that although SDN and NFV caused a huge stir in the industry and is a major step change for a lot of our customers, clearly there's a lack of real-world deployments. And we felt that there was a gulf between the limited demonstrations that are available and then the real reality of implementing these NFV solutions in a productized environment. And POC in a Box is really designed to bridge that gap by providing this portal-based real-world solution that is pre-built and delivered and integrated into a service provider's network in as short a period of time as possible and enabling a number of use cases that are tightly structured to ensure this positive user experience. And the virtual CPE is certainly the most prominent use case that we see where customers can really envisage and appreciate a very high return on investment very quickly. So although we've seen these few highly publicized trials and POCs and some of the major service providers have publicly announced those trials and deployments, that we also found that there was a very strong internal development and R&D capability within those organizations that's not necessarily affordable for other service providers in the Tier 2 marketplace that we very heavily focus on. And we also found that there were quite some long evaluation processes, and we wanted to be able to help our customers productize and therefore monetize those deployments. So we wanted to move towards beyond the demo, if you like. So we proposed these two models. One is a starter and one's advanced. I'm going to focus on what the starter model really delivers today and how that's set up. But we wanted to move away from having these open-ended POCs with no defined outcomes and really deliver a clear view to the individual organizations as to what NFV and SDN technology would be able to utilize for the organizations. So in our use cases, the existing solution for a service provider often requires them to undertake a lengthy procurement process. And what we've decided to focus on really is, again, fast-tracking that particular process so that we can bring them those benefits. And our POC in the Box solution is designed to cover a number of use cases, and the virtual CPE one is certainly the most prominent with most organizations. We basically give them like a flight case that can be delivered and installed within their data center environment, which includes the compute servers, the switches, the gateway router, and the software components such as Juniper Contrail, OpenStack, Junos Space, Security Director, and a number of other technologies, including the virtual SRX platform itself. And all of those components are pre-wired and configured and to enable them to be delivered on site with some professional services. And the professional service wrap really is the most important part to conduct a successful POC. And with that new technology that we're delivering into the organization, we believe a range of services really need to be provided. And you can see from this slide that we're talking about the pre-trial consultancy workshop. So all of the points that was covered earlier on in the webinar are really important to the organization. How do we find exactly what either the pain point is, how do we use this technology to really solve an existing problem, or how do we help our customer base go into new markets or bring on new services that they currently don't deploy, or how do we allow them to be more competitive, or how do we make them save some money? So a whole wrap of services really are designed to, again, work very closely with the organization and deliver the capability that they currently don't have or are struggling with, because we do find a number of organizations have limited resource or don't have the right experience. And I know future webinars will focus on the organizational challenges and the skills transformation that needs to take place. But for us, within around about a month to a month and a half's time of a combination of the POC in the Box around with the service wrap included, we find that we can bring customers into that environment where there's live traffic going to be delivered over this environment, where they can start delivering services, where they can start offering free of charge services for a week or 2 weeks, or they can start analyzing network traffic in a way that they couldn't before. we really do believe that this is a revolutionary approach and really does fast track. And then at the end of the whole session, we clearly do a review process. We show the return on investment metrics. We give those specifics, again, that we talked about, that organizations like Colt and AT&T can benefit from, and we make it real and very bespoke and personalized for the particular customer.
Thanks, James and Wilson, for those customer perspectives. And Danielle, thank you also for your insights on Cloud CPE. This leads us to key takeaways. First and foremost, solutions that matter equals business outcomes for service providers. What does business outcomes translate to? It means that the service provider customers are satisfied with their requirements, the ability for service providers to deliver services to market, and stay ahead of their business challenges. Second, it's the investment in a platform for innovation. This gives them the ability to rapidly deliver and innovate new services, staying ahead of their customer requirements. And last but not least, it's around business results. This investment in NFV allows them to drive increases in their revenue, improve their cost structures both from a CapEx and OpEx perspective. Cloud CPE and Telco Cloud embody solutions that have these high impacts today. They are proven, they've been used by service providers, and they've translated to the business outcomes that I've discussed. Lastly, professional services and Juniper partners, such as Infradata, are there to help you with their insights, their proven experience with other customers, and help you jumpstart your journey into solutions that matter. This brings us to the conclusion of our webinar today with Solutions That Matter. We thank you for your time today, and we invite you to join us next time on a talk around business transformation to continue our journey and discussion on transformation management. In the meantime, we invite you to visit us at juniper.net/bignfvidea to learn more about this NFV transformation journey. Thank you.